Okay, so I think we can, I got the green light to start the event. Okay, so whenever you are all ready. Okay, great. Okay, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Astana Finance Days Forum. This is a forum that has been held over the last few years, and we are very proud to organize for the forum a series of sessions related to the global macroeconomic outlook, but also to the new drivers of growth in Central Asia. Today, the theme of the conference is entitled Restoring Growth in the Global Economy. And our sessions entitled Restoring and Recalibrating Nation Growth Prospect, you can clearly see a nuance here when we talk about the recalibrating nation growth prospect. We were thinking that it would be a great idea to discuss not how we're going back to pre-COVID-19, but clearly the growth that we will need we need to be sustainable, we need to be green, we need to be digital and more inclusive. Yesterday, the EBRD released its prospect for Central Asia. And accordingly to the EBRD, Central Asia is expected to grow by 4.5% in 2021 and in 2022 due to higher commodity prices. And also there's a fact that these higher commodity prices will also help the recovering of remittances. The way we want to introduce our session today, we will start with Mr. Sergei Glaizev, who is the Minister of Economy at the Eurasian Commission. Mr. Glaizev has been a strong supporter of this forum for the last few years, and he will introduce to us clearly the prospect of growth in the region and also the new way of cooperation within Central Asian countries. We will follow by Ekaterina Trofimova. She's a financial services industry leader, partner as an advisor and risk advisor at Deloitte. And I asked Ekaterina clearly to showcase what may be the new driver of growth, particularly in the green area for Central Asian countries. And we will shift a little our conversation. As you remember, before we have COVID-19, there was a lot of discussions within Central Asia about connectivity and clearly the linkages between China and Central Asia with the Belt and Road Initiative. And Professor Brendan Dupree, who is the director of the Sustainable Kazakh Research Institute, will provide us some interesting output and main conclusion of a recent report that the Institute released about the digital Silk Road. We will follow by Nuria Kudnaeva. She's a founder of Digital Technology Foundation and will clearly showcase what is happening in Central Asia to accelerate digitalization. What needs to be done in this area, because we all know that the global economy will need to be more greener and more digital. Professor Michele Geraci, who is now in Rome, who has been based in Shanghai for a couple of years, I've been following the Belt and Road Initiative and will showcase clearly also the context about connectivity, but also the China-Europe relations also, and how can we see for Central Asia, are we going to see a reset of the Belt and Road Initiative in a post-COVID environment? And Romano Prodi, the former president of the European Commission, will come up with a concluding remark, less on Central Asia per se, but clearly about the global economy, the EU, and also about global governance, who needs to be revitalized. So let's start with Mr. Glaizev. Mr. Glaizev, I give you the floor for 8 minutes. You have a presentation. I think you can set the stage for the Eurasia economic prospect and what do you see next. Mr. Glaizev, the floor is yours. If you can mute, you are on mute.
Yes. Thank you very much, Mark, for this new opportunity to share my views and to deliver some information about the state of the art in our Eurasian Economic Union. First of all, I'd like to remind that Eurasian Economic Union is not only Central Asia. We have two Central Asian countries, Kazakhstan and Kyrgyzstan, but also we have Russia, which is dominating in terms of production, as well as Belarus and Armenia. So our Eurasian Economic Union is a little bit larger than Central Asia. Nevertheless, the economic development of our countries is correlates to each other. We have the common economic space, and in fact, the dynamics in our country is more or less the same. I shall give you some figures to look what were the results of the last several years. You see, as well as in all, I suppose, countries in the world, the year 2020 was very difficult. We have declined in all macroeconomic figures of production except agriculture. It is very interesting to mention that agricultural production increased in Eurasian Economic Union during the last year. It's a good result, which help us to maintain the consumption in among the population, consumption of the basic foodstuff. And if you are speaking about industrial production, we have a decline with one exception. The pharmaceutical production increased about 16% in our countries, and it is increased in Kyrgyzstan even in 30%. So in spite of the decline of the overall economic activity, including industrial sector, we have some sectors which have very good indicators. This not only pharmaceutical, also information technologies, the video cameras and so forth. We have also the clear positive dynamic. Concerning the integration effect, you see that the decline of mutual trade was a little bit less than decline of the external trade, foreign trade for our economic union. It means that the share of the internal of the mutual trade among the countries increased. And this, of course, the positive result of integration. However, unfortunately, we have declined during the last 3 years, especially in the year 2020. But nevertheless, this decline is 4% less than decline of the overall external trade. To give you an idea what does it mean our Eurasian Economic Union, first of all, this is the common market. We have classical 4 freedoms of the movement of goods, services, capital, and labor force, and we keep the common economic space, and it makes our countries more adaptive. We use our internal market to compensate external shocks, not only COVID shocks, but also political shocks. You know that 2 countries, Russia and Belarus, are under the sanctions. These sanctions include not only financial sanctions, but also the sanctions concern some trade items. And by the way, the positive dynamics of the agricultural production is maybe one of the reasons is that the Russian market is closed for the European food products because of sanction policy against Russia coming from the NATO countries. We use our common economic space to elaborate measures to fight against pandemic. We used some urgent stabilization mechanisms, which includes some foreign trade restrictions concerning the export of sanitary and pharmaceutical goods. We also give some stimulus to import these goods. And these instruments we used on the very short-term basis. They are very flexible, and our governments proved that they can work together, making decisions which are necessary to for stability of the market, which was under the very high pressure of the urgent demand because of pandemic issues, and we have to limit the export of these goods, which were in shortage in the internal market, and to stimulate the import of these goods. For instance, we elaborated the custom tariff on the temporary basis for such kinds of goods, and with the help of these measures, balance the market. Also, the governments agreed to create some special conditions for recovery, including measures for macroeconomic stability and acceleration of the creation of the common financial market. The decisions which were made by our Commission includes not only foreign trade issues, but we used some technical reglementation of the products, make it more liberal, and also argue that we need more credits and more softer monetary policy to stimulate economic growth. Nevertheless, all our countries suffered from the decline of economic activity. We see that this decline was rather modest. I mean, it was more or less like in other countries. And I should stress that the major productive capacities are still working in our economies, and we expect the rather high recovery for our countries in the next 2 years. Of course, there are some national differences. We see that the average growth rates, which are forecasted for the next 4 years, next 3 years, by national forecasting agencies and Ministry of Economy, are comparatively low. And for us, very important to use additional mechanisms for stimulation of economic growth, because the average growth rates for Eurasian Economic Union, 1.2%, is 2 times less than the average growth rates for the world economy, and 4 times less than the growth rates for China. For this reason, our heads of the states decided to introduce more stimulus for economic recovery. And in the last meeting in May, the heads of the states adopted the basic guidelines for macroeconomic policy, where they put the goal to reach the growth rate not less than 4.5%. We see such opportunities. First of all, we have to develop more financial market. The level of development of financial market in our countries is rather low, and it creates some bottlenecks to attract investments. We have a very low share of loans to GDP. So our banking system is very passive, I should say. The banks do not give enough credits for the companies. And this is the part of the very hard monetary policy which are conducted by our central banks. The central banks in our countries are keeping rather high interest rates, much higher than in Europe or in the United States or in China. For this reason, we have shortage of credits, and our monetary authorities still continue to sterilize the liquidity, which they think we have not the shortage of liquidity, but they think that we have the surplus of liquidity, which is not correct. In fact, we have huge shortage of liquidity, and the monetary authorities think that they have to sterilize the liquidity, not because it is excess of liquidity, but because the interest rates are so high that the real sector couldn't attract loans, because the profitability of the major industries in the real sectors are less than the market interest rates. And for this reason, the production capacity in our countries is not fully utilized. The level of utilization of production capacity is about 60% only. So we see opportunities to increase production using the existing production capacity and the goal to have 4.5% growth of GDP for this year and the next year we see quite realistic. Of course, for the long-term development, we need much more investment activity. At the moment, the investment activity is very low. The share of capital investments to GDP is less than 20%. We have to increase this, and to do this, we need more active, goal-oriented monetary policy. Goal-oriented means that the monetary authorities should use the specific instruments to finance the investment activity. We can do this without inflation risks. At the moment, the inflation is comparatively low in our countries, and using the digital technologies in monetary instruments, trying to avoid the flow of capital to the currency market and abroad, we can increase the credits to the real sector of economy about twofold to our mind. So we are working now for the strategic plans for the development of Eurasian Economic Union, and we're trying to use the international experience in this field, including Chinese experience, which is continuing to lead the economic growth, European experience with the soft monetary policy oriented for the creation of credits to the real sector, and looking forward to see some opportunities and recommendations also in this conference. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sergey. Thank you very much. I noted, in fact, it would be a very good transition to ask Ekaterina to take the floor and maybe to comment also maybe in your presentation, if it's possible, about one of the comment made by Sergey about financial market development in Central Asia. What would be the way to enhance and maybe to develop financial market integration in the region? But Ekaterina, over to you for 8 minutes, please. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mark, and thanks, Mr. Glazy, for this very important introduction. I think it puts a very important context for our discussion. I would probably start with talking about green economies and all this potential which is brought by this new development and certainly the challenges. We in Deloitte assist a lot of projects of transformation of individual companies, banks, and governments throughout the whole region. And we know from practice how challenging and promising this is. From the Deloitte experience, I should say that the threat of irreversible climate change is one of the mounting environmental challenges caused by current models of production and consumption all over the world. And certainly banks are the part of this transformation. The increasing scarcity of resources, surging levels of deforestation and desertification, the challenge of globalized flows of waste, growing fallout from deep sea oil extraction represent other pressing problems in a long list of environmental challenges. Despite the continuing fears of economic recession, ambitious measures to develop a green and more sustainable economy are needed, and not only in developed but largely in developing economies, namely the Central Asian region. It's becoming more recognized that the transition to a green economy is not only vital from an environmental perspective, but also promises important economic potentials. Not only can it help to address the challenge of rising resource prices, but it has also been identified as an important market opportunity. In fact, Deloitte sees that markets for green technologies are growing rapidly at a much faster pace than many traditional sectors. Already today, for example, in Germany, green economic sectors account for approximately 1.5 million jobs in the country. But the question stands whether it would be a role model for the rest of the world, in particular for the developing and emerging economies in the Central Asia. Our response, yes, but certainly adopted to the particularities of the economies and the context. Green growth strategies aim to foster economic growth and social development while ensuring that natural assets continue to provide the material inputs and services on which our economies and well-being rely. The green transformation can bring many positive development outcomes, such as enhanced productivity, innovation, creating of new jobs, markets, fiscal revenue generation. Furthermore, by achieving climate change resilience, water and energy security, and adequate functioning of ecosystems, the likelihood of abrupt changes that may trigger economic and social shocks could be significantly reduced. This is what Mr. Glaziev already mentioned. To enable greener growth, market signals and policies must catalyze investment and innovation into new ways of sustainably managing natural capital and extracting higher and longer-term benefits from its use. Within the current model of growth, we see that many Central Asian countries have intensively and often unsustainably tapped into their natural capital. If GDP, as a widely recognized macroeconomic measure, was adjusted for natural capital depletion, we would say that net GDP adjusted to this natural capital depletion would be substantially lower than the figures, namely which Mr. Glaziev mentioned. The continuing degradation of the environmental quality of life, high carbon emissions, and pervasive energy inefficiency, absolute and wasteful production technologies, increasing water scarcity and important water losses, particularly in agriculture, which is the basic industry for many countries in the region, as well as costs associated with all these concerns, point to the need of acting more firmly on mainstreaming environmental goals into framework and sectoral policies. In addition, we in Deloitte see that addressing problems related to climate change vulnerability, as well as water, food, energy, and security, becomes critical for the Central Asian region and for the sustainability of their economies going forward. After 20 years of transition, we see that most of Central Asian economies have opened with a sometimes high degree of merchandise, capital, and labor movement. The competitiveness of these economies, however, still need improvement and orientation toward future rather than past growth models. And this is a very important comment. The green agenda in this region can be closely aligned with some of the most central development goals, such as economic diversification, increasing the efficiency of production, meaning competitiveness in global markets, fully exploring the export potential, avoiding job losses, and contributing to fiscal revenues. Transition has led to structural changes, particularly higher than average deindustrialization, which has diminished many but not all negative environmental impacts. Nevertheless, the structure of Central Asian economies remains skewed toward low value added branches, such as agriculture or extractive industries, which are vulnerable to external shocks and demand fluctuations, hence the need to find new ways to income generation beyond commodity exports. Extremely low energy efficiency imposes substantial costs on Central Asian economies each year. Energy saving potentials across all sectors throughout improved efficiency and conservation in Central Asia, in accordance with our estimates in Deloitte, constitutes up to 35 to 40% of current consumption. Great potential. In Central Asia, the energy and water nexus is very strong, sometimes leading to economic disruptions. Remote and rural areas, particularly exposed to poverty, have a low and often decreasing access to water services and sometimes energy. Market signals for green growth have become much more pronounced, but yet insufficient to drive behavioral changes, particularly against the background of imperfect institutional frameworks in many Central Asian countries. Despite comparatively low but steadily rising tariffs for energy, water, and other environmental services, an increasing part of household budgets is dedicated to utility payments. And this is the problem which I'd like to particularly point your attention to. At the same time, the financial sustainability of utility companies, you asked me about the financial sector, but the financial sector is very much reliant on how the customers feel. Then the financial sustainability of utility companies remains low in the region and requires subsidies, and these subsidies are estimated to be particularly important in the region, absorbing sometimes over 30% of GDP. They are a major factor in poor performance regarding energy efficiency and renewable energy production. However, the momentum for green economies is definitely gaining. There are some very pronounced examples of green economy development taking place in the region. For example, alternative energy production is increasing in the Central Asian countries and neighboring countries like Georgia, Tajikistan, Kyrgyz Republic. Organic farming brings an increasing proportion of agriculture-related income in such countries like Armenia, Moldova, Ukraine. The Russian Federation and Kazakhstan, which is particularly important, have set energy efficiency targets, and they are working to meet them. Energy efficiency is also improving in Belarus. Azerbaijan uses it as a sovereign fund to finance green projects. In the conclusion, I would like just to mention that we in Deloitte see from the projects we're being involved in the region that the green economy momentum is getting the reality and certainly helping local economies developing and becoming more sustainable. And we are probably just in the beginning of the story, which could be a very strong promise for the region evolution. Mark?
Thank you very much, Ekata. Great. Thank you so much. Let me now turn to Brendan. Brendan, we talk a lot about sustainability here. Over to you. And if you can keep the time for 8 minutes, as there is, we have other speakers. Go
give me permission to share my screen? I have a presentation. Can't hear you.
Yeah. You can do that.
It says host disabled screen sharing.
Yeah.
Okay, wait, now I'm the host. Should work.
Okay, it should work. Okay, good.
So I think Ms. Trofimova's presentation basically hit the nail on the head with some of the major social, economic, and environmental challenges we're facing. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about, you've all heard about the Belt and Road Initiative of the Chinese government, the major infrastructure and social investment project all around the world. And I'm presenting basically on a chapter that I wrote together with the Davis Center for Russian and Eurasian Research at Harvard University on the digitalization of the Belt and Road Initiative. And my particular chapter worked on the role of Big Earth data for implementation of the Sustainable Development Goals. So as we all know, the Belt and Road Initiative, just to give you a little bit of a background, is a massive endeavor, $1.3 trillion investment, mainly in ports, highways, and infrastructure projects. The initiative affects more than 60% of the world's population and 35% of the global economy. And as you can imagine, with an initiative that large, there's major social, economic, and environmental impacts related to that and sustainable development impacts. And so with such a large infrastructure and social investment initiative, there's a need to look at how this impacts the countries in which this initiative is being implemented. And there's actually very little precedent for analyzing, let alone managing, ecological, social, and economic impacts of investment projects, the scale, size, and complexity of the ones in the Belt and Road Initiative. And the impacts are not only singular, so they're cumulative as investments attract new infrastructure and impact the population flows by increasing economic opportunities in accessibility of previously inaccessible locations. So one example of that is the Western Europe, Western China Highway. I'm sure you've probably all heard of that. It goes through Almaty all the way to St. Petersburg, and it's one of the largest road networks in the world. And you can imagine the type of impacts that has on the biosphere, geosphere, and hydrosphere. So, for instance, on the biosphere, habitat loss can happen. You have road kills, habitat fragmentation. On the geosphere, you have roads that create soil erosion and landslides in mountainous areas. And on the hydrosphere, the pollution and sediment runoff can also create problems. And of course, you know, investing also in these types of transportation avenues when you have such a massive problem now as the previous speaker was talking about with climate change and the release of carbon dioxide emissions, such an investment is questionable. And so what is the Digital Belt and Road Initiative Science Program? It's a science program for sustainable development of the Belt and Road region using big Earth data and Earth observation science technologies. And it advocates for integrating big Earth data applications in the design, planning, and monitoring of different aspects of human activity. And the mission of that is to build partnerships and engaging public stakeholders to design, develop, and implement projects that can illustrate the value of big Earth data applications for attaining these sustainable development goals. And so what is big Earth data? It's basically these Earth observation systems, communication satellites, remote sensing satellites, and also ground-based observations. And the purpose of big Earth data science is to study from a holistic perspective and in a multidisciplinary way the complexity of Earth systems, understand how to manage and store data on various platforms, forecast and identify future Earth trends based on digital data, and determine how Earth data can be used as a tool for managing complex Earth systems. Why is this different? There's other big Earth data platforms, is just the sheer scale of it. So 65 countries are participating throughout the world. The aim is not only just to collect data for data's sake, but actually use it to solve real world problems and to support the implementation of the Sustainable Development Goals. And it's also being simultaneously developed as these large-scale infrastructure and investment projects are happening along the Belt and Road Initiative, which allows for the opportunity to apply this data to real-time investments. And so, as you know, Asia is a very important part of the Belt and Road Initiative. It contains vast natural resources. It has transportation access to Europe, and it's also, you know, wedged between a few superpowers. And the region faces a lot of sustainability challenges. Actually, Central Asia, and particularly Kazakhstan, is experiencing climate change twice the global average. So they've had about a 2-degree Celsius temperature change since records have been made. And this creates serious problems for water scarcity, especially when you have a situation where you have mass urbanization. So there's bigger demand on water resources and less of a supply. And so there's a need to look at multi-layered data to try to manage these decisions across the Belt and Road region. As I mentioned, for example, the city of Almaty relies on glacial water for their fresh drinking water supply. It's coming from the Tian Shan Mountains. Because of CO2 release in the atmosphere, we've had, as I mentioned, Kazakhstan has experienced 2 degrees Celsius temperature change. The glaciers have been melting rapidly. About 50% of these glaciers are left since the 1970s in the Tian Shan Mountains, which means the water is being reduced. And at the same time, you have 500,000 people which aim to move to the city by 2050. So you're going to have water scarcity. So when you talk about economic issues, you have to think about, okay, what does this mean for the city of Almaty and for economic growth? And how do you manage all of these different issues which are happening simultaneously? And that's the purpose of the Big Earth data system. They basically break it into social as well as environmental issues. So they look at urban infrastructure, natural and cultural heritage, agriculture and food security, and you can read the rest of them. And this is all collected data on these issues, collected in this Big Earth data platform. And then that data is used as well to solve these priority action areas of the Big Earth data science program. Here you can see kind of what it looks like. You have the collection of this data in the Big Earth Science data platform, and then that data is used to look at these key priority action areas, and then they finance projects to help try to help solve and implement sustainable development goals related to these priority action areas, and they publish reports on that. It started basically, so it's relatively new. It started in 2016. The aim is to have the whole data platform as well as key flagship projects to be implemented and completed by 2026. So I'm sure as the years go on, you'll be hearing more about this science platform. And there's opportunities. There's a lot of work being done, and I know my time is running short. Just a few quick slides. So there's opportunities to link some of these regional data platforms to the Belt and Road Initiative Big Earth Science data platform that they have, working on climate change, agricultural issues, and so we hope that we can link Central Asian initiatives on Big Earth Science to this broader platform. But, you know, the policy implications that it can help build trust among Central Asian countries and also between China and Central Asian countries. It can help support the implementation of the Sustainable Development Goals, build capacities, and also have technological advancements. But there's an issue of trust, how the data is being used, what's it for, and transparency on allowing all stakeholders that want to have access to this data to be able to have it. So if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer after the end of the series of speakers that we're having. So thank you very much, and I'll yield the floor to the next speaker.
Thank you very much, Brian. Great presentation and very informative. Let's go now over to Nuria. Nuria, please, over to you.
Yes, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Timur, could you please give me the opportunity to demonstrate my screen?
Yeah, I think you can go ahead, yeah.
No?
Yeah, I think they give you the possibility to do so. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Now. I hope you see here.
Yes.
Just a second. You see here, right? So I'm going to talk about the digitalization in Central Asia and how it is the case of the Kyrgyz Republic. I think almost 200 states in the world, among 200 states in the world, there is not a single country, authorities of which wouldn't like to digitalize their country. However, what ingredients are needed to make the digital soup boil? According to the Estonian model of e-government assessment, there should be such tools as political will and support, the e-government coordination, financial support, legal framework, digital databases, security, cybersecurity, telecommunications, and so on, as you see here on the screen. According to the model of analytical center under the government of the Russian Federation, you see here there are 5 levels of digital e-government readiness, so to say, infrastructure, data, information systems, public functions and public services, and the goal-level life situations for citizens and businesses. Where the Kyrgyz Republic is, just some figures. Population is with a population of 6.2 million of people. There are about more than 9 million mobile phones, and internet users 2.5 million, and active users of social media about 2 million people. And before I go to the next slide, I would like to eliminate what is Tunduk, because I'm going to talk a little bit about Tunduk as well. Tunduk is one of the key components, fundamental component of the national house, Kyrgyz house. This is yurt. And here you can see the architecture of e-government in the Kyrgyz Republic, and the backbone of this architecture of e-government is the interoperability system, interagency system, Tunduk. Several years ago, the digital transformation of Kyrgyzstan took place with the roadmap of digital Kyrgyzstan, and introducing some of the key issues in government agencies, information systems, and actively implementing interoperability system Tunduk, and accepting new legislation. Now almost all government agencies are exchanging information with each other via interoperability system. And the digital ecosystem of the Kyrgyz Republic includes such components as digital identity based on cloud e-signatures given out to citizens and legal entities free of charge, digital procurement system, digital municipal services, digital payment tool, and so on. Just to show the key indicators of interoperability system, since 2018, more than 90 state agencies and commercial organizations have executed 300 million transactions. Just to compare, in 2018, there were about 300,000 such transactions, and the zero among commercial organizations. Now, interoperability system allows implementing the e-economy. Now, Kyrgyzstan is introducing the system of traceability of goods and services, which means more transparency and incoming more money to the state budget. At the end of 2020, one-stop shop e-portal for digital services was implemented, where citizens can receive documents from the state information systems, from different information systems of different agencies with the QR code. Now the results of the, for example, vaccination against COVID-19 can also be given out on this e-portal with the QR code. And also this year, the Kyrgyz Republic implemented the digital documents, just to show, for example, for public officers. Commercial organizations such as mobile operators are also exchanging information with the state information systems, making it possible to pay, for example, for the road penalties by smartphone, or taking the rent without paying the visit to some banks. For example, like lately, 1 month ago probably, there was implemented the paperless transactions of information with a one-time password. And what is very important, with the consent of the citizen. So the citizen, him or herself, is giving consent through e-portal. Well, since 2018, the Kyrgyz Republic was giving out some awards and achievements. For example, International Award Partner of 2019 given out by Estonia. Promotion, the Kyrgyz Republic was promoted in the UN e-government index, and there were several missions, technical missions, by the UNDP and the Korean Development Agency, which assessed very high the digitalization efforts of the Kyrgyz Republic. What is next? We understand that the digital transformation is not the road with only success stories. We understand there are many issues, and this story is not completed, is far from being completed. Actually, this is just the fundament. The fundament is being built. And what I think should be, which steps should be taken now is digital signatures and digital identity are not spread yet very widely, especially in the regions. The legal framework is also very hard, like in any other countries. It's very hard to take new bills of law and new regulations. Probably it is better to make regulative sandboxes. Also, the state should pay close attention to digital skills, to e-learning, since underprivileged segments of the population and population from remote areas cannot use some fruits of digitalization. And last but not least, there are some discrepancies between personal data protection, rigid legislation, and innovative trends. In other words, entrepreneurs virtually have to choose between innovations and the need to comply with the rules of data protection. But I think that this is Kyrgyzstan is not alone here. I'm coming to my last slide. What are the regional perspectives, or probably international perspectives? There are some suggestions for the future cooperation. Since we are talking today about the regional prospects, maybe we have to organize the regional data transfer. I know that there are some initiatives in this sphere, especially between Kazakhstan and Kyrgyzstan, Russia and the Russian Federation, and Kyrgyzstan and Kazakhstan, inside the Eurasian Union also. In the sphere of legislation, personal data protection and cooperation. We know that in Europe, there is GDPR, the General Data Protection Regulation. There is a question, so the question arises, should there be any Eurasian or Central Asian GDPR that should regulate this sphere? At the same time, in the sphere of digital skills, we can cooperate with other institutions in order to transfer this digital knowledge, digital data learning. Both the state and the non-governmental organizations would be interested in, and we can also share the content. And last but not least, Eurasia, I named this point, Eurasia and IT giant corporation. Probably it would be interesting to combine our efforts in protecting both our data, personal data, but also probably to collect taxes, to unify our efforts, well, let's say against maybe IT giants. And here I should stop, and I am open to your questions.
Thank you, Nuria. Thank you very much. Let's go now over to Michele. Michele, over to you. I think we have two excellent presentations, going over about the issue of sustainability, connectivity, digital Silk Road. Over to you, Michele.
Thank you very much, Mark. Thank you to the previous speakers, and thank you for having me here again in your very interesting event. I want to really give you two very simple and short key points. One is, as an Italian, as a former member of the Italian government, I'm engaged in the Italian society now to let both the general public, the companies, the media, and my colleagues in the government to really understand what's going on with the Belt and Road, what's going on in Asia, and particularly in Central Asia. So this is what I'm trying to do now, so that you understand my position. I see myself in between the academic, think tank, thinkers, and the government. So it's kind of a layer in between those two. And my goal is really to bring all this expertise to the table of the Italian and, where possible, other countries' governments. So please, in the future, do use me in a way as a channel to do that, because we really need the expertise, we need the analysis, we need the data. Why do I do that? I do that because I'm not ashamed to say there is, I want to be diplomatic, limited knowledge in the general public in Italy and Europe of what's going on in Asia, or what's going on in Central Asia. High-level officials would not be able to say the countries with which other countries border. They would not probably know immediately the GDP of the countries involved. The media, unfortunately, plays the loop, and the news and misinformation unfortunately gets spiraled up, and we are entering a situation where the truth and the analysis and the facts are superseded by those who speak louder. So we are not in the world where the level of voice makes reality. And that's why I really insist, and I welcome events like this truly, and I do really mean it, do make use of me, because this is what I struggle with. The second thing people don't really know is that the Belt and Road is not just between, in my case, Italy and China. It's about everything that is in the middle. This creates political tensions, because we know now we are raising the level, unfortunately, of dispute with China, and let's say the side effect victim of this anti-China feeling is, on one side, the companies, the European companies, the Italian companies that would not be able then to do as much business as they could with China. But I think the most innocent victims of this anti-China sentiment are the other countries in Central Asia, who also are part of the Belt and Road. They have links with China, they have links with Europe, who do fall trap of unwillingly of these situations. So because the lack of full understanding that I've described you before tends to put everything together. Yes, China and Asia, as if it was just one place. And so this is important to dispute and to really go more granular and let the people understand what's going on in each country. For example, the example before of the glacier that are the main source of water is something that is not known, and we need to really go down to a level to avoid that the people's mind, the policymakers in Italy, in Europe, lump together things that are very different from each other. So I go along two areas. One is a general understanding of what's happening on the continent Asia, where people know very little about. And then two, going vertical to each country to really explain what are the opportunities. And because you know what's happening? Here I put my hat as a finance professor. When we have a lack of information or information that is not correct, it's like having like the wrong discount rate when we do investment. And when you have the wrong discount rate, you tend to maybe be too afraid to invest because you think the risk is higher than it is. So you don't do investment, you don't take activities that otherwise you should do because they will be profitable, but you miscalculate them. So you don't do them, so you lose it on the opportunity. And then the other mistake, you do the things that you should not do, because then you flip on the other side. Where there are risks, you underestimate, and then you lose money. So one is an opportunity cost, and the other one is a more tangible, opportunity cost is also tangible, but let's say a more cash-based cost. And this leads to what? To inertia. So I transfer to you the general feeling that I've gathered. I'm in Rome. I've been in Rome for a month and a half after being in China for the last 6 months. I've talked to policymakers. I talked to companies, CEO that would have an interest in many sectors: energies, development, infrastructure, roads, railroads, agriculture, even irrigation system, machinery that are needed for the agriculture. But they would just say, let's not do anything for now. This is the feeling that I have. I'm perceiving. Maybe Romano Prodi could confirm or not this a feeling that I'm sure he may have also felt here in Italy because of this confusion. People don't know what to believe anymore. So I really want to stop here with these really two main points: an invitation to do more of this, to use me, to get these your analysis or insights into the tables and do more and more granularity. And Mark, really thanks, because I know it's difficult. In an ideal case, we should do these events every week. There's so much that people need to know, and so much that you guys know that you have, and there is a supply and demand mismatch. So much knowledge, so much ignorance, and we need to make those two lines cross. Thank you very much. Open for questions later on. Any curiosity you may have online, or of course offline. That goes without saying. Thank you.
Thank you, Michele. Thank you very much. In fact, we will indeed circulate the presentation of our speakers among our panelists here, because there was some very good content. We have to rush because the next session is waiting. You can, of course, stay, and I think I'm trying to liaise with Romano Prodi for him to speak to the next session, because we will shift not about the content, because we are going to look at the new linkages between Central Asia and the Middle East. You see a lot of investment coming from sovereign wealth fund from the Middle East to Central Asia in the field of food security, of infrastructure, so there is a new, I think when we talk about the new form of global governance, also a new type of relationship happening between Central Asia and the rest of the world. So we will address now these topics with our next panelist, who will be joining now to the session. I would like to thank all of you. It's been too short, but I totally agree, Michele, that we need to do more of this, because at the end we need to share knowledge. At a time where we are still dealing with the stop and go with COVID-19, where there are a lot of uncertainties in the global economy, I think we used to meet, face-to-face in conferences, and I think it's very important, not only for Central Asia, but for all the stakeholders here involved, to continue this conversation, not only related to Central Asia, because all countries are facing the same type of challenges: digitalization, greening the economy, but of course, to prevent the type of crisis that we have over the last few years: financial crisis, health crisis. And I hope for the next G20 summit in Italy, in Rome, in October, that there will be strong communiqué, strong commitment, because at the end, everyone needs to have vaccines in order to get out of this important pandemic. Thanks all of you. And now I will liaise with my colleague, Khaled, who will be sharing the next session. We look forward to seeing you again on this forum. And Khaled, over to you, and maybe Romano Prodi will join your session. Thanks so much for our panelists for this session. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mark. Distinguished guests, distinguished speakers, welcome to the panel From Corridor to economic platform, the New Trade Links, where we will look into the opportunities for greater integration between the MENA and Central Asia regions. GCC countries were the first to engage with Central Asian ones after their independence. Yet in comparison with their relations with other Asian countries, Central Asia still seems like a blank page. There is today a positive investment environment for trade to allow new solutions to face common current challenges. This is especially important as both regions are looking to diversify their economies, increase and solidify supply chain routes, as well as create opportunities for a young population. All of these themes are among the mandates of their sovereign wealth funds and investment authorities. The COVID-19 pandemic is nevertheless bringing about new ways of doing business. And so the roadmap for successful development of cross-regional partnerships and platforms cannot rely solely on trade and business, but equally needs to outline the importance of ECG as well as cultural and humanitarian exchanges. Kazakhstan has also been a pioneer in engaging strongly with the Arab and Middle East region. It has also set up a favorable environment, enhancing foreign investors to conduct an easy and transparent business, including visa liberalization with many of the GCC countries, putting forward steps to protect investor rights, as well as reduce administrative barriers. And this has yielded positive results. We have seen last year, at the end of the last year, signing of around 20 projects between Kazakhstan and the UAE around a wide range of sectors, but mainly agribusiness and food security. So Kazakhstan has also been a locomotive to presenting and being a hub for the entire Central Asia region with the Middle East. We have also seen earlier this year, Saudi Arabia committing to broader economic relations and collaboration with Uzbekistan, and 2.5 billion in worth of investments agreements with the Ministry of Energy of Uzbekistan with private and public Saudi companies. Later this year, Kazakhstan will also welcome an official visit from the Qatari Emir, Sheikh Tamim bin Hamad Al Thani, where key investment projects will be discussed and potentially signed. So from cultural complementarity and a growing engagement from public to public sector, how do we keep this momentum going and have a dynamic private sector also reach out and create this platform to create a greater integration between the two regions? I am joined today by a great lineup of speakers that I will introduce. First, Mr. Jihad Azur, Director, Middle East and Central Asia Department of the International Monetary Fund. His Excellency Dr. Mansour Mukhtar, Vice President, Sector Operations of the Islamic Development Bank. Mr. Kavi Sami, Executive Chairman and Head of MENA of Neuberger Berman. Mr. Azamat Askaruli, Chief Executive Officer, Castrate Center for Trade Policy Development. Mr. Raouf Salahujayev, Lecturer of Westminster University, Consultant of the Uzbekistan Government, World Bank, UNICEF, UNDP. And last but not least, Mr. Henk Hugendum, Chief of Financial Sector for the Qatar Financial Center. So I will start with Mr. Azur. I will avoid my urge to ask you a question on Lebanon and straight move to what is happening and the changes that are happening between Central Asia and the Middle East. If you could please give us your outlook and how do you see this development and this potential panning out? So I'm not sure if Mr. Azur joined us.
No, not yet, I think. Let me try to reach out to him, but please go ahead for the next.
Okay, I will start with His Excellency Dr. Mansour Mukhtar. Your Excellency, could you please discuss your experience an important role as a financial institution in supporting projects, especially when it comes to infrastructure and to create the sustainable economic activities and trade routes, especially in this area of the world that is landlocked.
Thank you very much for giving me this opportunity to share the experiences of the Islamic Development Bank in relation to supporting member countries to promote trade and economic integration. And I'm glad that we're all here to share different perspectives on this, and I'm pleased to be part of a distinguished diverse panel. Of course, the Islamic Development Bank as a development institution has for more than 4 decades put a lot of efforts in supporting intra-trade among the member countries, the level of institutions and multilateral agreements, and as you acknowledged, provide financing facilities to support infrastructure projects as well as production capacity related to trade in the member countries. And just to provide an illustration, over this period, we have approved about $20.2 billion in the transport sector, and with roads representing the highest portion of that. And on the energy side, of course, we've approved about $14 billion. And in addition to that, I should mention that we utilize our own balance sheet and mobilize market resources to finance infrastructure projects through the PPP modality. And since 2005, we provided about $4.5 billion to finance PPP projects, including the Almaty Ring Road project in Kazakhstan. And in addition, guarantees have also played an important role in improving the bankability of PPP projects. And hence, we are actively involved in developing new products that provide required support to infrastructure development, where PPP concessions are being awarded based on local currency revenues. And within the financing context, I can mention that the promotion of regional connectivity and economic integration is among the bank's strategic priorities. And we have, in this regard, increasingly supported the corridor approach for our member countries, convinced that transport corridors are one of the direct ways to support economic integration, and which is important for the growth prospects of countries, especially those that are landlocked. And the corridors provide a special regional or sub-regional framework to organize cooperation and collaboration between different countries and public and private sector stakeholders in the provision of trade facilitation and logistics, infrastructure, and services. We believe that the transformation of existing trade corridors into vibrant economic platforms requires effective mechanisms to ascertain smooth and safe passage of cargo along the corridor, reduce transportation costs, simplify cargo clearance procedures, simplify customs documentation, harmonize trade and transit policies, and enhance cooperation among member countries. And we stand ready to support initiatives to operationalize trade corridors between our member countries, especially between MENA and Central Asia regions. And we have a regional cooperation and integration policy and strategy, which follows an open regionalism approach through which we aim to achieve compatibility between regional trade arrangements and global trading systems. We support the building of economic platforms and the establishment of new trade links between different ISDB regions. And the Central Asia and MENA regions are indeed natural partners of such inter-regional cooperation platforms due to various geopolitical, economic, and cultural reasons. The two regions, of course, are within the immediate neighborhood of each other, and with strong historical ties and important trade opportunities. If you recall the fact that the historical Silk Road and its tributaries have shaped the trade relations across Central Asia and MENA, then there is a great testimony to the economic complementarities in this part of the world, and rationale and economic complementarity and rationale that is still valid today in different forms as we witness a growing cooperation in the areas of renewable energy and security. And I think beyond economic reasons also, we can highlight or point to the existing strong cultural ties between Central Asia and MENA that could be used as a critical asset and a potential driver of further integration between them. The ISDB approach in the promotion of global and regional community connectivity has two interlinked and mutually supportive elements. The first is the development of regional corridors, and the second is aligning physical connectivity with soft aspects of regional integration. And regarding the hard infrastructure connectivity, the priority is given to the connection of landlocked countries' economies to international ports and trade networks, which is very relevant for Central Asian countries. And just to provide a concrete example, the Islamic Development Bank approved about $371 million for the Kazakhstan-Turkmenistan-Iran railway corridor, connecting landlocked Central Asia and countries to the Middle East. And in addition, within the Central Asia Regional Economic Cooperation corridors, the Islamic Development Bank has financed 19 transport projects in the Central Asia region with a total amount of $568 million. It is also supporting a number of regional energy projects as part of its integration efforts. And regarding the soft aspects, the Islamic Development Bank has initiated commercialization studies on the Kazakhstan-Turkmenistan-Iran railway corridor to promote trade and reduce transportation costs. So we really, all of these underscore the importance that we attach to regional cooperation and integration to unlock potential of countries. And it's a means of pooling resources, enlarging domestic markets, stimulating trade and investment, and promoting cooperation. And we have basically renewed we have also learned from the recent experiences, the post-COVID experience, the COVID experience, that we need to work together in achieving these objectives. And I think it's a lesson that can be applicable across all the sectors as we move together, as we move forward to rebuild. And I want to really end by restating or reiterating the Islamic Development Bank's readiness to work hand in hand with relevant stakeholders to achieve sustainable development goals and to ensure that no one is left behind. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Your Excellency. We will move on to Mr. Azur, but first we have a 1-minute break, and then we will continue with Mr. Azur, who will give us the mapping out and the forecast for this both region. But a short 1-minute break just now.